everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a August wrap-up. So in July I read 15 books and in August I only read 5 books. So you know, the reading waxes and wanes and some months are better than others, but overall I'm still pretty happy with my reading in August. I watched this video by R.C. Walden here on YouTube and he talks about, you know, reading more quality instead of quantity, and so I'm pretty happy with 5 books because I feel like I got a lot out of them and I spent a lot of time meditating on them. I mean, you know, not like actually meditating on them, but like just thinking about them just by virtue of not reading them so quickly. Yeah, my family was moving this month, so it was quite hectic and I didn't have as much time to dedicate just to like sitting down and reading. So that's why I didn't read as much, but the first book I read this month was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, and so this book is not necessarily one of those books that you read and enjoy. It's really more about, I think, starting a conversation, and it's about this student-teacher relationship and the abuse that this teenage girl goes through during her time at this boarding school. It cuts back and forth between her teenage years and the protagonist in her 30s. I found that structure to be really compelling because even when the teenager is kind of romanticizing this relationship she's having, the narrative itself never romanticizes it because you always cut back and see that 15 years into the future, this woman's life was completely ruined by what happened to her and the abuse she had to go through during high school. I would not really recommend this book to anyone who is sensitive to those kinds of images because the author is very explicit in several scenes, but it's, again, never romanticized. I think they serve a really important purpose of, you know, presenting a fictionalized version of abuse because that takes the onus away from victims who might have gone through similar things to come forward and share the harrowing details of their traumas, which in and of itself can be very traumatic to, you know, have to be public with all these things. And so I found this book to be very significant in that respect. We can use this text as a stand-in for how other victims might be feeling, and yeah, I recommend this book, but with a huge caveat of many content warnings for, you know, sexual abuse. And yeah, it's a very upsetting book, but I am glad I read it, and I'm glad that Kate Elizabeth Russell wrote this book. The next book I read was Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. I think in my review I called her Shannon, which I'm so sorry. I did do an entire dedicated video review to this, so if you want to go watch that. So I won't go super in depth right now, but I was quite disappointed with this book because I thought it was gonna be a new favorite for me, and it kind of just ended up being, you know, not a bad book, but it didn't quite transcend my expectations and earn a place among my favorite fantasy books. But I do think that Shannon McGuire has the potential to be a new favorite author, so I'm definitely going to be checking out some of her other books. I was recommended her Encrypted series over on Reddit, and I have been wanting to get into urban fantasy a lot more. I think it's a genre that I would really enjoy. I just haven't found the right book for me in that genre, so I will definitely be checking out her Encrypted series. And I also think she has another one called October Day, which is urban fantasy as well. So I'm very keen to check out those books because I do think that while Middle Game was disappointing overall, her writing style is very, very engaging. She has very lyrical prose and I quite enjoy that. The next book I read was Sunlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft, and again I did a whole review for it. This actually did exceed my expectations, though I'm not sure if it's my favorite fantasy quite yet. I haven't read the rest of the series. It was just a very fun steampunk novel. Steampunk fantasy novel, and I loved Sunlin as a protagonist. Even though we have like nothing in common, I still found myself relating to him, which is always the mark of a great author, when, you know, they can make you identify and empathize with a character who has nothing in common with you. That's really special. I also think the writing style in Sunlin Ascends is very accessible. It's not super info dumpy, but at the same time the world building is still very well done, and I found myself at the end of the novel, even though I had gained all this information about this very mysterious world, I still wanted to know more. The third book I read in August was Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi, and again, I gave this book a glowing review on my channel. Go check that video out. It's quite short, under 200 pages, or 300, I don't remember, but very short compared to other books I tend to read, and I quite enjoyed that. Reading super long books can get a little tiring, so it was nice to sort of shake it up and read a shorter book. And honestly, I think that even though it was less than 200 pages, it still accomplished so much, and it covers as much ground as a lot of books that are like twice as long as it. Shout out to the Tor ebook club, which is how I was able to read this book. So basically every month they release a ebook for free, and all you have to do is give them your email and you get a free ebook every month, which is fantastic. So definitely go check that out if you're looking for free books. And then finally, the last book I read was Unsold by Will White, which is the first book in the Cradle series. But basically, Cradle follows this boy, Lyndon, who is said to be unsold. Everyone else in the Sacred Valley where Lyndon lives, they all have some kind of affinity towards Madra, which is this like sort of soul essence. And Lyndon has no affinity towards Madra. And what I really appreciated about this first book was that I thought the story was going to go in one direction, and it did. It was going in that direction, and then an event occurs that completely and utterly changes the direction of the book, and it was done so well and handled so well, and it was definitely more of a surprise than a shock, because I think the groundwork for this plot twist had been set up really well, and I did not see it coming at all. It was just so fun reading that first book. The plot completely changes and you're like, oh my god, what just happened? And it was incredible. This series has introduced me to this whole new genre called progression fantasy, where basically from what I understand, it's like, you know, characters leveling up essentially. And I think that aspect of these books is done really well, because Lyndon starts off, in terms of his magic, he's very weak. He has to rely on himself and his intelligence to outsmart his opponents, because he is not strong enough to overcome them through sheer force. And so every time Lyndon gets into some sort of situation, I'm like, oh, he's not going to be able to make it out of this one. There's no way. And then he's able to like pull it off, and it's fantastic. I thought this was a trilogy, but apparently there's like 7 books and there's another one coming out, so that makes me really happy, because I love these books and I cannot get enough of them. And I'm on the 3rd book now, but I haven't finished it yet. I think I have about 30% left, so yeah, I can attest to the quality of the next 2 books as well, that they only get better from the first book, and the first book was already pretty stellar. Once I finish the entire series and I'm like caught up to the latest book, I'll probably make a dedicated video. And so yeah, that was my month of reading in August. If you like science fiction and fantasy and you want to see me review more books, leave a suggestion for me down in the comments for something you think I would like, or something you want to see a review of. Maybe I'll check it out and do a review of it. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. I'll see you in the next one.